the biggest mistakes that I see real estate photographers make, especially when they're first starting out, go beyond the technical issues, which is why these big mistakes become quite common, because anybody can learn exposure, settings, composition, things like that. But that then hides some of the bigger issues and some of the bigger mistakes that happen. So what I want to do in this video is I want to cover the 5 top mistakes that I see real estate photographers make. We'll start our way at the bottom, work our way up to the top. Starting out with number 5 is undercharging for your work. I get it, especially if you're first starting out, you want to be able to get gigs, but you'll have a problem if you undercharge for your work. And I know a lot of photographers will go, oh, that's not what realtors are paying in this area. They'll pay as low as $100 for a shoot. Well, let's take a look at some real data. If we take a look at Ruby home data from 2024, we look at shoots that range easily between $200 and $300, and even a little bit higher. And when we take a look at 2-hour shoots, those go as high as $640. And I can attest to that. That's very similar to the pricing here in my area. And yes, I am in Southern California, and I hear that a lot, that, well, you're near Los Angeles, they're gonna pay a lot more. You'd be surprised what they do pay in Dallas, what they pay in Portland, all over the country. And this I know also because I train a lot of photographers. So I'm connected with them and I help them grow their business, and they do charge quite a bit. This isn't that uncommon. So it's a trap to fall into, that if you start charging too little for your work, especially starting out, it's not just going to slow your growth, it's going to have a negative impact on your reputation. And I want to touch on that here in just a second, but first, just consider this, is that if a real estate agent in the United States working on commission charged just 3%, which let's say that that would just be the seller's portion of a 6% commission, just 3%. Well, if you're selling a median priced home that's over $400,000, which is typical median priced home right now in the United States in 2024, then you're looking at a realtor getting easily a commission of over $12,000. And yes, I know the brokerage will get a little bit of that, but that's nothing in comparison to the difference between $100 and $300 for a shoot. So when we're talking to real estate agents that might want to be spending just $100, $200, they're really not the clients that I want to go after. Instead, the ones that are willing to pay $300, $400, $500, $600 just for a very basic shoot, those are the ones that you really want to target, and there's a reason for that. As human consumers, we tend to think that higher prices mean higher quality. It's known as the pricing bias. It's something that we're used to, that we will then justify paying more for something thinking that it has higher quality. So the inverse is the same. So if we pay little for something, we may think that the quality is lower. So when you price your services high, then people think immediately, they start getting a bias in the back of their mind that your quality is high. You do the opposite, they'll start thinking that you produce low quality photography. Just to close up this one mistake before getting on to the next, is that good agents, the ones that have been in business for a long time doing this, they know one big principle, and that's that photos don't just sell the home, photos sell them. So it's a way that they can market to other potential sellers that they want them to represent them, because they know how to do professional work. If you're going to be selling your home for $500, $800, $1 million, well, you want to be able to have an agent that you can trust, that will show that they can sell your house. They know what they're doing. Once again, we get into this pricing bias where we equate this higher quality to the higher price of something that they're paying for. So that's something that also the real estate agent is also leveraging. Mistake number 4 builds off the last, because it's about getting clients. And I see too many new real estate photographers go out and try to get clients before they're ready. In other words, they don't know that they're not good yet. I don't mean that in a condescending way, because I look back at my work from about 12 years ago when I first started doing this full time, and I cringe at it. We all are that way. It's something known as the Dunning-Kruger effect, where we think we're actually better than what we are. It's another one of these psychological biases that we all have. So what you need to do is you need to get good first. You need to get really, really good at what you're doing when it comes to real estate photography. And this is crucial. I mean, very critical for real estate photography, because this is such a referral basis business. And if you start out with a bad impression, even just with one realtor, that reputation is going to spread. And you don't want to have a bad reputation. You don't want to get out there and try to get clients until you're really ready. But as you know, that is something that I can help you with. If you want to learn more about real estate photography, I do have online courses and books. I've got online courses that cover the pro interior photography, expert editing, exterior photography, business and marketing for real estate, videography for real estate as well. And I've got links to all that down in the description for this video if you'd like to check that out. But we have 3 more mistakes to go, so let's get on to the next one. So mistake number 3, it also builds on the last, and that's what I see a lot of new photographers, especially, and some also experienced real estate photographers, listening to the wrong people. Now, you'll be getting advice from all kinds of people doing any type of trade, but especially photography, because everybody's a photographer, right? Everybody's got an iPhone in their pocket. But the thing is, you're going to have, for instance, your friends compliment all your work. They're going to love everything that you do no matter what because they're trying to be supportive and they are your friends. Clients are not your friends. They could be someday. But also, if you go on social media groups, you'll find a lot of toxicity. If you want good advice from any photographer, look at their work, follow them on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and those are the people that you should be listening to, not just toxic, failed people that are sitting around in social media groups and want to do nothing more than criticize other photographers. And also, even though you should listen to your friends, they are your friends, it's different when it comes to doing business, and you really do need to listen to your clients. The second biggest mistake that I see is overbuying gear. As photographers, we love gear. We're gadget people, right? New camera comes out, new lens comes out, and it has that new camera, new lens smell. Whatever it is, we're always drawn to that. But when you're doing photography as a business, you have to keep things in check, and those things can ruin your business and make it very difficult as you're trying to build your real estate photography business during your first, second, and even third years of doing this. Remember, first off, is that no gear will make you a better photographer. Sure, gear can provide a convenience for different circumstances. Something I talk about in my courses and books, and I show why I prefer certain cameras, but you don't need to have a 50 megapixel camera. 24 megapixels is just fine, and we're not going to be doing high burst counts, so you don't need to have the latest and greatest 50 megapixel camera that can do a burst of 100 frames per second. You just don't need that. Let's take an example here. Let's say that you're a Nikon shooter and you decided to get yourself a Nikon Z8. That would cost you about $3,800. Well, you've got a nice 45 megapixel camera that can do amazing video, but if you bought 2 different cameras, you could do the same thing for a lot less and still have a backup body. You could use, for instance, a Nikon Z5, still a very good full frame camera. It's what I use, by the way, for my real estate photography stills. 24 megapixel costs you about $1,200 or so, maybe $1,300 when you're taking a look at it full price. Then that's already a lot less than the Z8 can do just as good of a job. The video portion of it, you don't need to use a Nikon camera. You can use, for instance, the Lumix GH5 Mark II, which outdoes a lot of the other bigger framed cameras because it's micro four thirds, but it does 4K 60, and it does an amazing job. And that's also a fraction of the price as well. So when we're taking a look at a GH5 Mark II at being $1,200, and we're taking a look at a Z5 at, let's say, $1,300, well, that's a lot less than the Z8. On top of that, you will need backup gear. So having 2 still cameras, 2 Z5s at $1,300, and then you have a GH5 Mark II at $1,200, you're right there at the price of just one Nikon Z8 camera. And all that gear that I just mentioned would be fantastic to use. That's what I use. All my video work, I'm using GH5 Mark II, and for my stills, I'm using Nikon Z5s. Now on to mistake number 1, and it's something that I see often. It's not just in real estate photography, but other genres as well. And that's that photographers get to a certain point, they think they plateau, and then they stop advancing. They stop practicing, they start trying new things, and what happens in photography, we're in the day and age where things are changing very quickly. Software, features, camera, and their features also are changing quite a bit. Also styles and how things are promoted, how media is produced to take advantage of, for instance, different aspects of social media, the way that multiple listing services are changing, things of that sort. So you have to be able to stay on top of it, and don't think that once you reach a certain point, that's it, put your feet up and relax. So instead, practice. And you don't have to practice just real estate photography, you need to practice photography. You need to become skilled at different levels of photography. An overlap between a lot of real estate photography is landscape photography. Take a hike, get out there with the camera, challenge yourself, and also with the editing that goes along with it. So also portrait photography, because if you're indoors and you're using lighting, that's going to be very similar to using lighting in some ways when it comes to real estate photography. But the thing is, you have to constantly practice, challenge yourself, find new things that you want to do. So this is a big difference too between two types of real estate photographers. There's some that get into real estate photography thinking they can just make money doing this, and they're not out for the love of photography. Well, that's a type of photographer that also won't keep practicing. They won't pursue it. They'll just go out there and try to get the low-hanging fruit, gig after gig after gig. They'll follow the same formula, but after a while, well, the formula does change. And then there's the second type of photographer, like myself and probably you as well if you love photography, and that's that we love photography enough that we're going to keep pursuing it. It's something that we've already been doing most of our lives, or a good portion of our lives, or for many years, and we want to keep doing it. So we're driven to things about photography, but we shouldn't be driven towards just getting new gear like I mentioned earlier. We should be driven toward just getting better and loving photography, taking pictures, and that helps us improve. When you have something that you really love to do and you do practice it a lot, no matter what it is, you're going to get better at it. Same thing goes for photography. So if you want to get better right now, you can overcome this top mistake. All you have to do is shut off this video once it's done, pick up your camera, go outside. Take a picture of something, go to a local park, go take a hike, plan a trip someplace where you can take some photos also. Go to some of your city hall or other local architecture, take your tripod, work on getting some architectural shots in as well. Think about doing also some portrait photography. Use some lighting, even if it's just self-portraits of yourself. Try to get artistic with it as well and practice, practice, practice. If you fail, that's okay. You throw it away. You start over again. But if you don't try, the answer is always no. So to overcome the biggest mistake out there, keep things in check. Don't go for just the latest gear. Go for the love of photography. And like they say, if there's something you love, the money will follow.